directed.
Weather changes are tough on your transmission. As we move to colder winter weather, AMCO Transmission invites you to bring your vehicle in for preventative maintenance before the snow flies. Have a diesel pickup, Cummins, Duramax, or Power Stroke? AMCO in Logan is your transmission specialist, and they promise to get you in quickly. For over 50 years, AMCO Total Car Care has been experts in repair for transmissions, brakes, tune-ups, and more. Find your local AMCO. 75 East, 2000 North, 752-1940.
If you want to connect with your kid and you need help, call the Girls and Boys Town National Hotline, 1-800-448-3000.
His father died in a robbery. He laid awake one night and imagined a place where good would always defeat evil. Jerry Siegel imagined a new hero, Superman. Imagination. Pass it on. From PassItOn.com.
News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Bringing Utah's political leaders directly to you, hitting the issues that matter most, in partnership with the Utah Broadcasters Association and on stations throughout the state. This is Direct Link with Utah's political leaders.
Welcome to Direct Link with normally Governor Cox, special guest tonight, joining us in place of Governor Cox for this installment of Direct Link. We have with us House Speaker Mike Schultz. For those out there listening, we're broadcasting live from the KVNU studios here in Logan, Utah. I'm Jason Williams. I'll be serving as moderator, if you will, timekeeper mainly. And House Speaker Mike Schultz will get started immediately here with an introduction of you. And I just want to throw this out to kind of set the tone, not to stir anything up. But when we've done with Governor Cox before, sometimes we had a few minutes to talk before the calls started coming in. Not so tonight. We had callers before the program began. And Speaker, if you'd like to mention that to the governor, you're more than welcome to. No, I joke.
Yeah, maybe I'm making people mad. I don't know. They're calling to complain. We'll see how this goes, right? So, yeah. Jason, I'll just say this. It's an honor to be with you guys. Rural Utah has a special place in my heart, and I'm really excited to have the opportunity to be on the show with you and hear directly from your listeners. I think it's important for me to understand what's important to them. And so I'm encouraged that there's people that want to join in. So, and I'm glad that you're going to keep us on time, because we're going to need that tonight.
That's always the goal with a caller-driven program like this. And I want to remind listeners too, that is exactly what this is. No script, no agenda, no pre-planned discussion points. We're hoping that callers drive the hour, and you can do so by calling our studio here in Logan, 753-5868. That is area code 435, of course, 753-5868. Speaker Schultz, we have listeners from all around the state, and it's my pleasure to get to host these when we get an opportunity to, because I, like Governor Cox when this was first launched, felt that rural Utah sometimes took a back seat to the discussion out of Salt Lake County or Salt Lake City or the Wasatch Front. But as Utah grows, of course, the issues are starting to blur together. We see that every legislative session. And for listeners, I wanted to, for those not familiar with Speaker Schultz, I thought I knew everything. I'm a legislative junkie. I followed the legislature for 4 different House speakers now, and I didn't know this. Speaker Mike Schultz has worked as a worm seller. He has worked as a cow milker, a hay hauler. He has roofed homes, a general contractor. I say all this, though, in seriousness to say you are familiar with rural Utah.
So I have a large ranch in rural Utah, and it's what I do now. It's what I love. We run about 1,200 head of mother cows, and it's not a moneymaker, as those of you that are in the business know that, although the prices are a little better today than what they've been over the past few years. So it's not too bad today, but it's a way of life, and it's a way of life that I love, because I have the opportunities to raise my kids growing up working, getting them off of the computers, getting them out into reality, to learn life's experiences, and I call it common sense. So I love that about the agriculture community in rural Utah. So that's my passion.
Appreciate that. And again, appreciate you making the time to do this, to talk with Rural Utah tonight on Direct Link. And we'll get right to it. Again, I wasn't joking. We had callers before the 6 o'clock hour of our regular programming here on KVNU ended calling in to be a part of this. And one of the first callers will be our first caller to speak tonight. And this is none other than a commissioner of Daggett County. And Matt, you wanted to talk to Speaker Schultz about public lands.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jason and Representative Schultz. Appreciate you taking the call and the time to have this conversation today. So, as you're probably aware, a large portion of our county, approximately 89%, consists of public lands. We have a residency in the county of full-time residents of just under 1,000. So we're the smallest county in the state by population. But on the weekends, especially holiday weekends, we can have as many as 50,000 people come into our county to recreate. The federal government has struggled to maintain and financially operate some of the facilities that are on these federal grounds within our county. One of which is a location on the reservoir, a campground on the reservoir called Antelope Flats. It's on the east side of Flaming Gorge Reservoir. And it originally consisted of about 120 campgrounds, and a boat ramp, and was one of the largest facilities on the reservoir. But through time and the lack of attention and budget, the Forest Service has struggled to maintain that facility, and it's gone down to 30 or 40 campsites. There's a lot of work and attention that needs to be done on that facility. Well, on July 1st, we had a meeting in conjunction with our Lincoln Day lunch with our state representatives and also representatives from the federal delegation to pitch an idea about making that campsite into a state park. I'm wondering if you have heard about that idea, and also what you might identify as a next step for us to take to try to help that become a reality.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah. Well, Commissioner, first off, thank you, and thank you for calling in. I have heard about that. Representative Scott Chu has reached out to me on that issue, made me aware of that issue. And, I just want to start off by saying this, and I didn't get a chance to say this at first, but one of the things I appreciate the very most about rural Utah is the representatives that you send to the state capitol building here in Salt Lake. They are some of the best people in the state, and they're leaders in the state of Utah. And the House of Representatives and the Senate and the Utah legislature really depends on that good people, common sense knowledge. And so I'm grateful to rural Utah for that. So I know Antelope Flats well. I grew up camping there. It's a place I love. I'll never forget catching crawdads, I think that's where I caught my first bass, if I remember correctly. But I caught several trout out of there as well, standing on the shores. I never had a boat, but we grew up camping there in that. And to see what the federal government has done to a lot of the campsites all across the state is sad. And let me tell you the problem. I think it's because it's being managed by bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., and we're not managing that close to the people, letting the locals who have managed and taken care of those lands forever, that have a passion about them, that care about them, that care about the resource, manage our public lands. And this is not the first time that we've heard this issue, although we've heard this problem all across the state. In counties like Daggett, where you said is roughly 90% of your county is owned by the federal government, it even poses a more challenging problem. Look, we have invested a lot of money into our state parks over the last several years because people all across the state want to go out and use our state parks and recreate. I grew up on public lands all across the state and in every corner of the state of Utah. It's what gave me the passion for Utah as a whole, but more specifically for rural Utah. And we need to make sure we create more opportunities for that to happen and take care of the resources that we have. If you look at what we're doing with state parks, we're expanding them. We've added a couple state parks over the last several years, and we're looking to expand that as well. We would love to take Antelope Flats and move it into our state park system. We think that it would be one of the best, most successful state parks in the state because of the access to Flaming Gorge Reservoir and all the Green River. You're not too far from the Green River. I guess you drive around to the other side, but also all the public land surrounding that area. It's just a great part of the state that people would love to go and have the experience. The problem is the federal government will not let us do that. Now, we're hopeful that with the new Trump administration coming in, that we can work some of these things out like this and push more of the management back to the states. But the bigger thing is we would like to control all of the federal land across across our state. And I'm sure most of you are aware of the public lands lawsuit that was filed that takes all of the BLM. If we're successful, it would turn all of the BLM land over to the state to allow the state to manage it. And the state would work with the local leaders of the counties to manage these lands, because you guys know how to manage these lands best. Not someone sitting in Salt Lake, certainly not someone sitting in Washington, D.C. And so the goal is to get it back, the management closer to the people in the counties. And so that's something that we will take a strong look at. I think maybe under the Trump administration, we'll have more opportunities to look to do that. And it's something that we will look to doing is we'd love to take over that campground, try to expand it, and put the resources that are needed to make it successful there. Daggett County is a great county. It is the smallest county in as far as population goes along the Wasatch Front. We recognize that tourism is probably one of your largest economic drivers. We need to look to do all we can to expand on that so that your citizens that live there have opportunities.
Commissioner, I appreciate the question. And for others out there listening, regardless of where you are in the state, this is a rural Utah focused hour. And you can get your question or comment for Speaker Mike Schultz in at 753-5868. For those outside of northern Utah, that is area code 435-753-5868. We do have callers lining up again, so we'll just quickly move on to the next. And Speaker Schultz, next caller is Mary from right here in Cache Valley, and she has a question about home titles for you. Mary, go ahead.
Hi, Speaker Schultz. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, I have a question. Talking with friends, we're concerned about home title theft. And we were wondering, since we have titles to our vehicles, why we couldn't have a home title of some kind, and also some verification process put in place to make sure that the seller was actually the rightful owner of a property.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Mary. So we do have titles to your houses. It's all kept at the county recorder's office. There are a lot of checks and balances in place. We have not seen a huge problem of home title theft here in Utah. I know that there are several products out there that you can purchase that will monitor your home title on its own, so that you don't have to hop on the county's website and see what's going on. But if there are issues that are out there or ideas out there on these types of concerns, we would absolutely look to solve those. But so far, we have not heard of a big problem in Utah as far as home title thefts. We have great title companies across the state. They're very well regulated. Not to say that you couldn't have someone skirt the system, but that is actually a felony if that would happen. And when you talk home title theft, it's pretty easy to trace some of the trace back to those that broke the law to do that, and that's a felony that we take very seriously here in the state of Utah. But if there are additional concerns out there that we're not aware of, we would definitely look to step in and make sure people's homes and their titles are protected, and do all that we could.
Appreciate the question, Mary. For listeners, again, this is Direct Link. This is an event for you and your calls to drive the conversation. This month being fielded, those calls and questions being fielded by House Speaker Mike Schultz, a Republican lawmaker from here in Utah, representing Utah's 12th House District, including Hooper, Roy, West Haven, a man that knows rural Utah. So get your questions in if you can. Emma, hold tight. You are the first caller up after this quick 2-minute break here on Direct Link with House Speaker Mike Schultz.
Fatigue, headaches, weight gain, hair loss, insomnia, anxiety, intestinal issues, joint pain. Do you suffer from consistent symptoms like these, and no matter how many doctors you see, things still don't improve? Whether you have a thyroid problem, an autoimmune issue, or chronic symptoms, we can help. We do complex medical testing and blood work to find the mechanisms driving your symptoms. And then we create a plan to improve each one while we teach you the tools to stay on top of your health. We've been helping patients just like you for almost 14 years now. We see patients from all over the world, and we have an office in St. George, Logan, Salt Lake, Farmington, and Springville. You aren't crazy, you aren't lazy. It's not just because you're getting older, and these symptoms are not normal. No matter what symptoms you have, you shouldn't feel this way, and we can help. Don't accept Band-Aid answers.
Call Red River Health and Wellness at 855-55-RIVER.
Call Red River today.
Did you build a new home? Regardless of how clean your builder was, your ducts will have a variety of construction debris in them. Debris like sawdust, flooring pieces, sheetrock dust, and more. You do not want to move into your home with that debris in the ductwork. Call the Duct Hunter and get on the schedule today. Call the Duct Hunter at 770-4813.
We are the Duct Hunter. Breathe better, save money, protect your home. We are the Duct Hunter.
At the V Foundation, V is for victory over cancer. V is for victory over giving up.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Join the V Foundation team. 100% of donations fund game-changing cancer research. Donate now at V.org.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. It is critical we keep AM radio in all cars and all trucks. Text AM to 52886 today.
Standard message and data rates apply.
Local news and the best talk. News Talk KVNU.
Welcome back to Direct Link with House Speaker Mike Schultz, fielding your questions and calls using our studio line from the KVNU studio here in Logan, Utah. But any and all rural Utah questions are fair game tonight, regardless of where you're listening from. Dial 435-753-5868. We do have callers on the lines. We'll jump right back in. But before we do that, during the break there, we were discussing topics that we can go over from today's interim and more in the news should we run out of calls. And I just want to throw out one other for the speaker to consider. If we do need to fill some time, we can all talk about Representative Casey Snyder. And it's a frequent thing on my regular afternoon program to crack jokes, badmouth him any chance we get because he listens every day. I'm kidding. He's a great guy, and I know you'll have a chance to work with him in the session. Next caller on the line here for you, as Speaker Schultz is also from Cache Valley. Emma has a question about education.
Hello, Emma.
Hi, thanks for taking the call. Yeah, my name's Emma. I'm from Cache Valley, and I saw an article recently that said higher education funding would be cut. And I'm a student, so I just really wanted to know what that would look like.
Emma, that is a really, really good question, and I'm glad that you took the time to call in because, look, higher education is a very important part of our society, a very important part of our economy, and a very important part of our communities, especially in Cache County. I'll say this, I think, we do a really good job at the state level holding our state agencies accountable for the dollars that they receive all across the board. These are taxpayer dollars that we want to make sure are being very well managed and taken care of and spent on the highest priorities. It's still government, okay? So there's a lot of frustrating things that happen. And I'm not saying that we're perfect, but we really try hard to have a good line of sight into what those finances are being spent on. Now, one thing that the legislature's never taken very seriously is what is higher ed doing with the money that they are getting from the state of Utah. Approximately 50% of the funding for our higher ed universities comes from the state of Utah, and these are taxpayer dollars that go to subsidize our higher ed. Which also leads to Utah having some of the lowest, if not the lowest, tuition rates in the nation, which we are very proud of. We want to make sure that we continue for that to happen. However, we have not put those proper checks and balances on higher ed like we have the other areas of state government. And so what you've seen, I think, is a lot of bloat happen inside of higher ed. We have not had a lot of focus directed towards higher ed and what are they doing with the funding and making sure they are being efficient with the programs. We recently had a higher ed audit of higher education that came out that talked about we have 4 universities that offer this particular program, and it's French. The program doesn't say that in the audit, but the program we're talking about in question is French. And we have 4 universities that offer that program. And out of those 4 universities in 2022, they only graduated 14 students. So you have 4 universities offering 4 separate programs that combined only graduated 14 students. There are several of those types of programs that are stood up all across the state. And so we're not saying that we shouldn't offer French in Utah. However, I don't know that we need 4 different universities offering those types of programs or offering that program. I think we can scale it back to 1, possibly 2, and reduce the cost by roughly 50%, maybe more, maybe 75%, and then take and not cut the money. The idea is to reallocate those funds and put it towards high demand jobs. And I'll just give you an example of nursing right now. We have a huge nursing shortage all across the nation, but more specifically here in Utah. And if you look at the projections over the next 10 years, it is not getting any better. In fact, it is getting significantly worse. Now, we have a lot of students that want to go into nursing inside of Utah, but good luck trying to get into a nursing school inside of Utah. It's so hard. And so why are we not expanding those areas? And so, the same can be said about computer science programs, cybersecurity, engineering programs. Those are programs that are in high demand that in many cases don't have the space inside the universities and certainly are not putting out enough graduates to meet the demands. And so the idea is to take and reallocate some of those resources over to the areas that have the high demand out there. Another thing that's really concerning to me is if you look at the administrative cost per student in many of these higher ed institutions across the state, they have expanded significantly faster than the times of inflation. I'm not going to mention which universities, but we have one university over a 9-year period increased the administrative cost per student from $3,000 to $7,700 per student over a 9-year period. That is worrisome. That's a 143% increase. We have another university that had a 112% increase over a 9-year period. Those are more than double the administrative cost on a per student basis inside our higher ed. Now, we have great universities all across the state. I'm not here, some of the best in the nation, but to pretend that we don't have some inefficiencies going on inside our higher ed, we'd be, I think, derelict in our duties. And so we need to really put a focus on, cutting some of those costs and then hopefully reallocating them and using them more wisely. And, and I'll just give you an example of a university that's doing a great job, and that's Southern Utah University. During that same 9-year period, they've only increased their administrative cost per student by 20%. That's below inflation. And so we really have some great universities out there that can teach, that we can lean on, maybe expand in some areas. But we also need to look at some of the inefficiencies happening inside of higher ed. We have an audit that points to a lot of those things. We're excited to move through it. It's one of my top priorities, actually, for the House of Representatives. Now, one thing that's a misconception out there, and you're hearing some of the faculty members say it, I just want to say this is not true. This will not lead to increased tuition rates. In fact, if we do this correctly, it will lead to lower tuition raises. And so the idea is to drive down the cost. Also, the idea is to move students through the programs faster. Very few people that you talk to that have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree will tell you that, hey, I'm glad that the universities made me take all those classes, or the bachelor's degree or the master's degree or whatever it is, I had to take all of those classes. Most of them say, hey, I think you can shorten those and take a few less classes. We want to try to really look at that and what can we do to move students through the programs in 3 years versus 4 years, thus saving them a whole year of money on tuition rates. And so really the goal is to move people through the program faster while still getting the same education or even better, and doing so more efficiently. So I think it's a huge benefit to both the higher ed institutions as well as the students. That's the overall goal.
Great question, Emma. And for others out there, again, this is a listener-driven conversation with House Speaker Mike Schultz, focusing on rural issues here on this episode of Direct Link, 435-753-5868. And Speaker, just a follow-up question from me as we await more calls on the issue of education. You had mentioned there in your comments that you'd like to see the legislature as one of your priorities, a privilege of the Speaker to set those priorities each session to deal with rising costs of education and the amount of time it's taking to get a bachelor's degree here in Utah. Can you give an example of something the legislature could do to help in those situations?
Yeah. So look, I think most of the time the legislature knows its role, and it's not for the legislature to give in and work and figure out all the little details. We have a Board of Higher Education for that. And to be quite honest with you, I think if the legislature gets in, tries to figure out all those little details, we will more than likely probably get it wrong. We have great representatives who, I promise you, their heart is in the right spot, and they are trying to do what's best by the constituents and those that they represent. These are great people that I get to serve with every day at the state capitol, and I get to know them well. They are here because they love the communities that they represent. And that goes on both sides of the aisle. We may not agree with those on the left, but they are good people that are here to do what they think is best for the state. Now, most of us luckily would disagree that on the direction we would take the state, but we're not experts in higher ed. We do have a handful of experts in higher ed that are here at the state capitol, and we listen to them closely. However, the legislature overall is not an expert in higher ed, and for us to get in and let's figure out what the details are in Utah State University or University of Utah or Southern Utah University, they're going to be different problems and different things that need to be addressed in each one of those universities, and the legislature isn't built to have that ability to address those individual problems in each university. And so the legislature's charge is to set the policy, set the broad areas, and then give the reins over to the Board of Higher Ed in this circumstances, which then the Board of Higher Ed will work to work with the university presidents to do what's best for those universities and for those communities. For example, I recently visited Southern Utah University, who has one of the best aviation programs in the nation. Roughly 10% of the helicopter pilots that our nation produces comes out of Southern Utah University. They would like to grow and expand that. And we think that's great. We want to help them grow and expand that. And so if we cut some of the areas that are not as efficient, then we could take and expand the aviation program at Southern Utah University. Now, Utah State University focuses on agriculture, whole different set of problems, concerns, and it's also a research facility, university, which we're very grateful to have as well. But it's our job to set the policy, work with the Board of Higher Ed and the university presidents themselves and universities to make sure those policies are enacted as if. And sometimes you turn it over to the universities and they don't get it right, or any other agency, and so then it becomes the legislature's responsibility to hold them accountable as well. And we will do that as well to make sure that the goals are being met and that the students are getting the best outcomes and the communities are getting the best outcomes.
Appreciate that answer and your time tonight. Also appreciate listeners' time tonight. If you'd like to weigh in with a comment or a question, Direct Link is a caller-driven hour. So join us, 435-753-5868, to ask a question of our guest tonight, House Speaker Mike Schultz, joining us. And Direct Link with Speaker Schultz continues after this 4-minute break.
Might have to change its nickname from the volunteer state, as Utah is now ranked as the state with the highest volunteer rate in the nation. The U.S. Census Bureau and AmeriCorps released new data Tuesday about volunteering rates across the nation. They found that around 28% of people in the U.S. volunteered with a nonprofit between September 2022 and September 2023. That marks a return to volunteering for the nation, which had a steep decline during the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2021, only 23% of people volunteered. In 2019, those levels were at 30%. The Beehive State was the most engaged in volunteering, according to the new data, in both formal and informal volunteering. The groups defined formal volunteering as that done with a nonprofit, while informal volunteering is that of getting medications for elderly neighbors or driving a friend's kid to school. A teenager died after falling while hiking near Ogden. The Weber County Search and Rescue Squad confirmed, adding that the 17-year-old was vacationing at the time he fell. According to officials, search and rescue was called out Thursday evening after the teen's family reported him missing after he had failed to return from a hike. Drones and a climbing team were deployed to find the teen, who was eventually located with severe injuries. After hoisting the teen off the mountain, he was airlifted to a local hospital where he died from his injuries. KBNU weather, mostly cloudy tonight, low in the upper 20s, and then sunny into the low 50s on Thursday. Mostly sunny and mid-50s on Friday. You can always get more news at CacheValleyDaily.com.
Anderson Seed and Garden's annual Christmas open house is coming soon. November 22nd and 23rd, Anderson's will be completely transformed into a holiday wonderland with 25 gorgeous decorated Christmas trees, LED and traditional lights, wreaths, and everything you'll need to decorate your home for the holidays. Don't miss out. Anderson Seed and Garden's open house, everything you need for the holidays at Anderson Seed and Garden's lowest prices of the year. Anderson Seed and Garden on Center Street, Logan.
This is Jill Anderson, CEO at CAPSA. At CAPSA, you matter. To survivors of domestic and sexual violence, you matter. CAPSA is here to help you escape the chains of abuse and rebuild a life filled with hope and safety. And to each of our donors, you matter to this work. Your donations directly fund programs that create safety and rebuild lives. Learn more about CAPSA and how you matter at capsa.org.
Social Security is with you through life's journey from birth to retirement. As your life changes year to year, so do your needs. For over 80 years, Social Security has helped to meet your needs and is committed to improving access to the services that make a difference in your life. Today, you can verify your earnings, estimate your future benefits, apply for retirement, manage your benefits, and even change your address, all from the comfort of your home. Social Security's online services help put you in control with secure access to your information anytime, anywhere, allowing you to spend more time with family, friends, or simply just enjoying the day. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow. See what you can do online at socialsecurity.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
News Talk KVNU, 610 AM at 102.1 FM.
Welcome back to Direct Link with House Speaker Mike Schultz, Republican lawmaker from Utah's 12th House District and currently serving as Speaker of the House. And you are welcome to join us. This is a caller-driven hour Direct Link focusing on rural issues. So please chime in, 435-753-5868. We've had some great questions so far on everything from public lands to education to a specific issue in Daggett County with the commissioner calling in, and home titles even coming up tonight. That's what I love about these. You never know what callers are going to want to ask about. So please join the conversation with House Speaker Mike Schultz here on Direct Link, 435-753-5868. And Speaker, I had solicited, just in case we had a lull in the calls tonight, questions from listeners of my regular show. And of course, they never cease to surprise me with how specifically they get in their following of the legislature. I love hearing and seeing that from Utahns. But we had a question about a school fees amendment bill from the 2024 session. And if correct me if I'm wrong, this will not go into effect until the 25-26 school year. House Bill 415, doing a good thing, eliminating a lot of what were referred to during the debate as circular fees that were really negatively impacting family budgets. One mom telling the legislature it was almost $500 for core and elective classes for one of her children that year. So the legislature said this has to end. Well, one of our listeners called in and said, I'm concerned about school band programs, which are oftentimes entirely fee-funded. And I thought that was a great question to throw out because it speaks a bit to the balancing act that the legislature has to try and strike correctly every session, right?
Yeah. Well, great question. We got to find some more controversial stuff to talk about to get your listeners energized so they start calling in. So call in, throw me a zinger. I'm excited tonight. Let's have some fun. So let's talk about something controversial and fun. So so it's a great question, and you're right. For several years, school fees have came up, and all the way from curricular that are mandated fees all the way down to extracurricular fees. And what's the balance? Do we try to strike? Do we allow, and then also, base it off of people's finances and how much money they make, whether or not they've got to pay fees. These are all things that have been talked about and discussed over the last several years. And last year, the legislature landed, I think, in a really good spot, doing away with fees for curricular classes. So meaning if it's a required class, then you don't have to pay the fees. So for it, the school has to pay for that. Now, the state also funded that as well. So the state gave the money to the schools to offset that so that the schools weren't left deficient. Because that's also, recognize that our schools are resourced, need the resources to operate and be successful. And so, we need to make sure that we offset that. So we gave them additional money to offset those fees. Now, in many cases, the school districts have not done a very good job explaining what the new law is and what it is, and partially we'll take some of the blame on the legislature as well. We could have been a little more specific in the legislation that was passed. So we will have a cleanup bill that comes back this next year and cleans that up. But for extracurricular activities such as band, those fees can still be charged. We realize those instruments are expensive to buy and maintain, to fix, and so those types of fees will still be there in existence. Now, we may change that this next year. If we may allocate some more money to cover those costs. We'll see. That debate is still happening, but yeah, band is not going away. I promise you that.
Good to know. That is. It is, you mentioned going back and cleaning up bills. It's one of my favorite things about the legislature that I think is frustrating for a lot of people sometimes, but it is sometimes a slow, clunky process. But I like that it takes 3 or 4 years to get something done sometimes in Utah. That way we think things through. We're a little more thoughtful about things, whereas in other states you see, big things can be done in 1 year. But that's a lot of the legislative session, right? Going back and revisiting things that maybe just need a tweak here and there.
That's the majority of the bills that we pass. They're just little minor tweaks, cleanup bills or whatever fixes with a changing economy or things are always constantly changing. That's the majority of what we do. Now, I think it's important to recognize, and I didn't know this until I came into the legislature, Utah has the shortest legislative session out of any other state in the nation. I believe that's what makes Utah great. Honestly, the longer the legislature is in session, the more chances we have to pass bad bills. And so only having 45 days to come up here, focus on the top priorities, things, and really work to one of the most important thing we have to do every year is balance the budget, which isn't easy on a lot of years. And this year will be one of those years. There's not a lot of extra money this year. And so it's going to be tough this year to give state employees raises, fund education at the proper levels. And so we're going to have to make some tough decisions this year because there's not a lot of extra money in the budget. So this will be a tough year, but coming back to one of the things that I think makes Utah great, and we are the greatest state in the nation. U.S. World News Magazine ranked Utah the #1 best managed state in the nation. They also ranked Utah as having the best education system, the second best education system in the nation. And those are some big accolades, and I could go down the list of other things. We have the #1 economy in the nation, one of the most diverse economies in the nation, meaning we're not reliant on just one sector of the economy. We're very diverse, which does help us have a good economy, and our citizens have a great opportunity to go out and find a job that fits them, that they're happy to work in. It's really important that Utah stays in that position. And so I think that having the shortest legislative session in the nation helps accomplish that, because it really does make us focus on the things, and it might take us a couple of years to get something like that passed. But then also, it does, sometimes we make mistakes, and sometimes we have to come into a special session and fix those mistakes. And then other times we'll fix it the next year. But it's one of the things that makes Utah great, and as well as the people. I think we're #1 in the nation on all those fronts, because we have the best citizens in the state here in Utah who really truly care about their communities, their state, their families. They're family driven, and that's what makes Utah great.
Our guest again here on Direct Link tonight, focusing on rural issues, is House Speaker Mike Schultz. And give everybody a little teaser for this next caller. I'm excited about this because when we talk about rural issues, oftentimes even they get it oversimplified. We think of the difference between rural and urban concerns when the legislative session is coming up around the corner. But even rural areas have very diverse set of challenges and issues right now. You might see counties here in northern Utah like Rich and Cache County side by side, but Rich County may be facing issues a little more similar to what's going on in Garfield County, the southern end of the state. And with that in mind, we get a chance to hear from those down in Garfield County. Commissioner of Garfield County, Leland Pollock, on the line. Leland, hold tight. You are our first caller after this quick 2-minute break.
Backed by popular demand, A Gentry Christmas. The most beloved Christmas songs of all time, brought to life with epic orchestrations and lush harmony. Bring your family together to experience A Gentry Christmas. Thursday through Saturday, December 5th through the 7th. For tickets, visit casharts.org.
Clean it up and get it out before the snow flies. Don't wait another winter. Let DD Auto and Salvage pay you for that junk vehicle. DD Auto and Salvage makes it so easy and fast to get rid of your junker vehicles by paying you the most money possible. Pickup is available. If you have metal, DD Auto and Salvage in Logan wants to pay you today. Call 787-1204.
That's 787-1204 today.
See store for details.
Saturday, the Aggies host San Diego State on Merlin Olsen Field.
A complete dominating performance as Utah State will win this game.
KVNU is your home for the best game coverage with pregame at 11:30, kickoff at 1:30, and postgame and Aggie Call immediately after the game.
It's all about getting up the next day until you continue to turn the page and make things happen. So that's what we plan to do.
It's the Aggies and the Aztecs, Saturday afternoon on News Talk KVNU, the heritage home for the Aggies.
Dear John, uncontrolled high blood pressure is serious, and I can quit whenever I want. But when I quit, you quit. Sincerely, your heart.
To get your high blood pressure to a healthy range, visit heart.org/blood pressure. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
Save a life. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the Department of Transportation and the Ad Council.
Where news and talk comes first. News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Welcome back to Direct Link this month with House Speaker Mike Schultz, fielding calls and questions from all around the state of Utah, north, south, focusing on rural issues. We have about 6 minutes left in the program, and I'm excited for our next caller, Speaker Schultz, because being from rural Utah, following the legislature closely, sometimes we do a good job of separating urban and rural discussions and issues. But oftentimes it's striking how different the issues in different rural areas are, from the difference between Cache County and Rich County, right, across the mountains from us, or even Box Elder County, 12 minutes away from us here in downtown Logan. But then, of course, you have the southern part of the state. Garfield County always stands out to me as an area with some very unique challenges. And joining us right now on the line with a comment for Speaker Mike Schultz, our guest tonight, we have Leland Pollock, Commissioner of Garfield County. And Leland, thanks for calling.
Hello, Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, Mr. Speaker. I just have a comment. Garfield County, just very quickly, I know you're limited on time. We are the size of the state of Connecticut. Let that sink in for the listeners on, that's listening in. The size of the state of Connecticut, 93% of our county is federal land. 3.5% state, 3.5% private. And so we have about 5,000 people. And so we have very little representation. So for many, many years now, I've been going up and bugging the speaker long before he became the speaker. And he's always worked with us on rural projects, water development on public lands for cattle. And you can thank, some of the funding that he's helped us with when the sportsmen go to their favorite hunting place and there's an elk or a deer, utilizing that water and things like that. So it's good that we have a speaker like we have, because he understands we have so little representation, because representation in the Senate and the House is based on population. And Garfield County's been able to go up for years and make our presence felt at the legislature, and the speaker's been one of them. One of the issues we have now is the Panguitch Lake rebuild. We had the Panguitch Lake catastrophe last spring. Everybody's seen it on the news.
Sure.
And I'm not sure, I'm not going to step out on a limb, but I will just say this, that Speaker Schultz has been very instrumental on making sure that we have the resources we need to rebuild that dam, because it needs a new dam. It's 150 years old. So I guess I don't have a question. I just want to give him a shout out, because he's for all of Utah, not just urban Utah and his district.
Appreciate that.
I appreciate that, Commissioner. And Panguitch Lake is one of my favorite lakes in the state. I grew up going there, camping there my whole life. I love that little campground up there, and next to the lake. And we actually had a meeting on this the other day. We will be looking to appropriate about $5 million in our base budget. If we put it in our base budget, that is really important, and that means it gets done at the first of the session, and rather than later in the session. And you never know until it's actually done, and we get all the votes and it passes. But it is a top priority for the state of Utah.
Speaker Schultz, along those lines, is it challenging? This is an unfair question with under 2 minutes left, but is it challenging to balance? I mean, most of the people live in the urban areas, but these issues, as Leland mentioned, as we deal with here in northern Utah, the rural issues are quite demanding as well. Is that a challenge to balance the two, or to get the voices heard from rural Utah?
It is, and that's why really the state needs to allow more or allow the local elected officials to solve their issues, and to give the support to those local elected officials and that they need. It's not easy. It's not hard for me to look after rural Utah, because I absolutely love rural Utah. I love the people of rural Utah, and that's why Commissioner Leland found a friend at the state capitol when he started coming up here, because I get along with the folks from rural Utah, because they are some of the best people in the state, and they do have unique and different concerns than what is here along the Wasatch Front. And we need to work together to address and make sure all of Utah is working together, focused on creating a great state, and not one corner of the state can be left out. And if we all work together, then we can have good things.
Speaker Mike Schultz has been our guest again tonight. And Speaker, appreciate you and Governor Cox as well making these direct link events happen. But be sure to tell Governor Cox you got more calls than he did last time tonight. And we'll back that up if you need to.
We will. I'll even exaggerate a little bit.
Please do. It's been a pleasure to focus on rural Utah again, without costing the concerns of the urban parts of the state. Of course, we're all in one boat here. Is really a pleasure. And our guest again, House Speaker Mike Schultz. If you'd like to learn more about Speaker Mike Schultz, there are a couple of different ways you can do it, but I would recommend this for everyone out there, whether it's learning about your lawmaker, another lawmaker from another part of the state, the Speaker of the House, the Senate President, whoever it might be, the upcoming legislative session. You can track bills and more at le.utah.gov. And thanks to everyone for being a part of this tonight. Thanks to our guest again, Speaker Mike Schultz. And that is Direct Link. Stay tuned for regular programming on your local broadcasting partners right after this.
You've been listening to Direct Link with Utah's political leaders in partnership with the Utah Broadcasters Association and on stations throughout the state. Tune in to this station every month for Direct Link with Utah's political leaders.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kristen Chenoweth. When our servicemen and women return from war, they often carry wounds that the rest of us cannot see. Up to 1 in 5 veterans who served in Iraq and Afghanistan are diagnosed with post-traumatic stress. And often, even the best treatment, including medication and therapy, they fall short. Sadly, more than 6,000 veterans die every year from suicide. Thanks to the life-saving power of the human-animal bond, professionally trained service dogs can help. But connecting a veteran with a well-trained service dog can be difficult. Wait lists are long and training can cost tens of thousands of dollars. But service dogs can bring healing. If you're a veteran or know a veteran struggling with post-traumatic stress or traumatic brain injury, please go to AmericanHumane.org to learn about their Pups for Patriots program, which provides dogs to veterans for free of charge. Let's help our veterans heal from the invisible wounds of war.